Chapter 14. Matt stretched and yawned. He made his way to the bedroom window and, blinking against the bright light, peered out. The sun was already high above the trees in a clear sky. His bedroom felt hot and sticky. He yawned again, bumped into his dresser, opened a drawer, found a bathing suit, and sleepily stepped into it. Padding heavily into the kitchen, brushing the hair out of his eyes with one hand, he found a note from his parents on the kitchen counter. They had gotten up early to go fishing with friends, didn't want to disturb him, wondered what time he had gotten in, would see him later. What time did I get in? Matt wondered. He wasn't sure. After the triple feature, he, Ben, and some other guys had headed to the carnival grounds to check it out, but the field was dark, the rides all shut down, the booths covered for the night. It must have been well after midnight. Back in town, Matt met some friends who had been to the carnival. One of them started teasing him about April. "What are you talking about?" Matt asked, confused. "April was there all night, with another guy, a tall guy, straight black hair. You'd better watch out, Daniels." The boys walked off, snickering and making jokes at Matt's expense. Gabri. She was there with Gabri, Matt realized. As he made his way down Seabreeze Road, kicking clods of sandy dirt as he walked, he decided he'd better apologize to April. He probably shouldn't have spent the night with the guys, even though he had really wanted to see those movies badly. He realized he hadn't spent much time with April since they'd arrived at Sandy Hollow, and now this townie with his dark romantic eyes and slick smile was moving in on her. He put a stop to it, Matt decided, sneaking into the cottage, hoping his parents wouldn't hear him come in. He'd call April first thing in the morning. Now it wasn't exactly first thing in the morning. It was 10:30 to be exact. But he gulped down a glass of orange juice, too quickly for it gave him a sharp pain between his eyes, and then dialed April's house. The phone rang 3 times before someone picked it up. "Hello?" April's mother said. "Hi, Mrs. Blair, it's me. Can I talk to April?" "Oh, hi, Matt. She's still asleep." "Huh?" April was a morning person. She was usually up at dawn. "The twins tried to rouse her for breakfast more than an hour ago," Mrs. Blair said. "She muttered something about not feeling well, said she felt like sleeping for weeks. That's not like her. I figured I'd better let her sleep." "Yeah, well..." Matt was surprised. He wanted to ask, how late was she out with Gabri? But instead, he said, "Tell her I hope she feels better. If she wants to, she can meet me at the beach." He hung up the phone, feeling troubled. He scratched the back of his neck. His skin felt all prickly. The air in the small kitchen was heavy and wet. It's really going to be hot today, he thought. I've got to get to the beach. He called Todd, who had also just pulled himself out of bed, and arranged to meet him at the beach. "Bring your boogie board," he told him. "Maybe the surf will be good this morning." But when he arrived at the beach, already crowded with morning sunbathers, several swimmers diving and darting through the low blue-green waves, Todd was stretched out on a beach towel in the shade of a yellow and white striped beach umbrella. "Hey," Matt called. "How's it going?" Todd asked sleepily. "Where's your boogie board?" Todd raised his head and looked around. "Guess I forgot it." Matt sighed impatiently and dropped his boogie board to the sand. "What'd you do last night? See that girl?" He dropped onto his knees, then sat down on the boogie board, the sun warm on his back. "Yeah," Todd yawned loudly. "Jessica, we just walked around town. She wanted to go down to the beach, but I wasn't up to it. I went home early." "Hey man, you need a swim," Matt urged. "We both need something to wake us up this morning." Todd didn't respond. "Hey, Todd, come on, man." Silence. "Todd?" Leaning over, Matt saw that Todd had fallen asleep. "What's with this guy?" Matt wondered. "How can he conk out before 11 in the morning?" Todd uttered a sigh in his sleep and rolled onto his side. "What kind of suntan is Todd using?" Matt wondered, staring at his friend. "He seems to be getting paler, not darker." As darkness descended, Jessica tingled with excitement and almost felt alive. She could feel the renewed energy coursing through her body. She swept her long hair back over her shoulders, allowing the soft breeze off the ocean to ruffle through it, and thought about the blood, so sweet and tart at the same time, so rich and thick, and thirst-quenching. The moon, which had begun as a pale white disk, was growing bolder, beginning to gain its golden glow. Staring up at it, Jessica tried to remember her life. What had she been like when she was 16? Like Todd and his friends? Did she summer at the beach? Did she have boyfriends? Try to remember, Jessica, she urged herself. Try! But she had no memories. No memories. No memories of her real life. Her childhood was gone. Her family was gone. Her teenage years, all her years, her life was gone. Even her death was gone, she realized. How did I die? But of course she hadn't died, and that was why her only memories were of her life as an eternal one. Her only memories were those of the gray twilight world she roamed in, floated in, soared in, shadowy memories of longing, of need, eternal need, of thirst. Was that a tear rolling down her soft pale cheek? Was she actually crying for her past, for all that was lost to her? Crying for a life she hadn't a single memory of? No, it was just the salty air, she told herself, brushing the wetness from her cheek, forcing her morbid thoughts away. This was to be a night of triumph, after all, a night of victory, and then of celebration, a night of blood, a night of renewal. She saw Todd approaching along the shore. This is your night, Todd, she thought, all of her sadness lifting as he neared, and her tingling excitement returned. This is your night, my poor, innocent, shy, not so very smart Todd. This is the night you become an eternal one, the night you shed your boring old life and soar into the dark sky. He waved to her, and she stepped toward him, her bare feet light on the wet sand, moving out of the shadows of the rowboat dock. Behind her, the 3 rowboats tied to the dock bobbed like flat fish in the water, bumping gently against the wooden piles. Todd, she called enthusiastically, running toward him, her short sundress lifting high on her long, slender legs as she ran. Hi, he said, still shy, still reluctant. Nice night, huh? She took his arm, kissed his cheek. So near the precious blood, so near. Her pulse throbbed. She could feel it, and she could feel her thirst. One last sip, one little taste, Todd, and you're one of us. Forever. What did you do today? She asked, locking her eyes on his. Went to the beach, he told her. But I didn't swim or anything. I was feeling kind of lazy. Wonder why, she thought dryly, holding on to his arm, staring into his eyes, letting her power do its work. You want to go to the carnival or something? He asked, his voice quavering. He's under my spell, she thought. He's mine. It's so peaceful here on this end of the beach, she whispered, leaning against him, moonlight reflecting off her pale face, her bare shoulders. And we're all alone. He turned his eyes to the water, to the small wooded island out beyond the rowboat dock, but she forced his eyes to return to hers. How about a kiss, Todd? She didn't wait for a reply. A faint smile began to spread on his lips as she moved her face forward and pressed her mouth to his. He's mine. He's mine. But what was that sound? That fluttering over the rush of the waves? Was it just the rowboats bobbing against the dock? No. She pressed her lips against Todd's, sighing softly, and raised her eyes to the purple sky, and saw the bat hovering low overhead. Gabri. It must be Gabri, she realized. He's come to ruin it for me. He's come to rob me of my victory. No, Gabri, she thought, her pulse pounding as the wild and human energy flowed through her. No, Gabri. Not tonight. You will not interfere tonight. You are too late. The boy is mine. The bat hovered lower. Quick, quick, Jessica commanded herself. Her fangs lowered, and she pressed her face against Todd's throat, and she bit deeply, deeply, and drank. The bat fluttered low, lower, but he was too late. Too late. The race was lost. Jessica drank. More and more. Then, as Todd uttered a loud moan, of pain, of helplessness, of ecstasy, Jessica pulled her face back. The color faded from Todd's eyes as they rolled up into his head. No, Jessica shrieked. No, 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 it was an accident. I don't believe I did this. Chapter 15. Matt sat up in bed, pushing away the sweat-drenched sheets. He peered out the window, listening to the soft calls of birds in the nearby trees, announcing the dawn. I can't sleep, he said aloud, rubbing his eyes. What time is it anyway? 5:35, the clock on the night table said. He'd been tossing most of the night, his mind whirling with troubled thoughts. Mostly, he had been thinking about April. He had tried her house when he got back from the beach in the afternoon, but the line was endlessly busy. Then he tried calling after dinner, and her mom said April had gone out. Probably with Gabri again, Matt thought unhappily. I've got to talk to April. I thought we were going to have a great summer together. Thinking about her had kept him up all night. Now, as the sky slowly brightened and the chirping of the birds grew louder, he decided there was no point in staying in bed. An early jog on the beach might help to clear my mind, he thought, pulling on a pair of black spandex bicycle shorts and squeezing his feet into his running shoes. He closed the cottage door silently behind him, stepping out into the morning air, still cool and dew-laden. The salty fish smell of the ocean invaded his nostrils as he began to jog past the other cottages to the dunes that led down to the ocean. The lapping waves were still inky black under a pearl-gray sky as Matt began his jog along the shore. Seagulls scattered as he ran, squawking in shrill protest. The beach was empty. All his, not even one other early morning jogger in sight. Off on the brightening horizon, he could see the dark outlines of a ship, some kind of barge. The image shimmered above the water, its outlines bending and shifting in the eerie morning light, like some sort of ghost ship, not real. Matt jogged slowly but steadily, past the dying embers of a small campfire someone hadn't fully doused, past a blackened, charred log the ocean had tossed up, past a pair of starfish dead and dying on the sand. The spray felt cold and refreshing against his face as his sneakers crunched over wet sand. The gray of the sky was beginning to lift, like a pale curtain rising, revealing the crimson morning sunlight underneath. The ocean water brightened with the sky, reflecting its color. This is really beautiful, Matt thought, jogging steadily, his forehead dotted with beads of sweat despite the cool air. He gazed ahead at the dark rock cliff that rose up at the water's edge beyond the dunes. As he approached the cliff, the sand beneath his shoes becoming pebbly, then harder, he looked to the small rowboat dock that jutted out in the shadow of the cliff. Something appeared to be floating in the water beside the dock. Was it a small boat of some kind? He was too far away to see clearly. As he drew closer, crimson sunlight rippling along the water's edge, he could see it clearer. Something dark, pretty large, bobbing beside one of the rowboats. Has a whale lost its way and trapped itself near shore? He dismissed that idea as he drew closer and was better able to judge the size. He stopped just before the dock, his chest heaving from the effort of his long run. Wiping away the perspiration from his forehead with his arm, he turned his eyes to the water, and his breath caught in his throat. It was a person, bobbing like a rowboat, bobbing face down, arms floating out at its sides stiffly, so stiffly. And before he even realized it, Matt was in the water, cold around his ankles, over his sneakers, which he hadn't thought to remove. He hadn't thought he'd find a person. He hadn't thought anything. And he was tugging the person by the shoulders, the water up over his waist, pulling hard now, but the person, the body, the person, was so heavy. The water felt so cold, swirling about his hot body. Matt gasped for breath, his chest heaving. Are you breathing? Please be breathing. But no, how could he be breathing? It was a he, yes, a he, but Matt still hadn't been able to lift his face from the water. How could he be breathing with his face still in the water, with his arms stretched out so stiffly? What was he wearing? Only undershorts? His skin so white and smooth, like some kind of sea creature. Only sea creatures can breathe in the water, and this person wasn't breathing, couldn't be breathing. Panting loudly, Matt heaved his heavy cargo onto the shore, pushing the wet, matted hair back from his forehead. Matt stood for a moment, hands on hips, leaning forward, breathing deeply, waiting for his heart to stop racing. And then he bent over the person, the body, turned it with great effort onto its back, and screamed, "Todd! Todd! How, Todd?" With dreadful clarity, his friend came into sudden focus. His nearly nude body was covered with gashes and cuts from banging against the rocks and around the rowboat dock. So many cuts. His blood appeared to be completely drained. How, Todd? How? So many cuts, all over his face and neck. No, it can't be Todd. It can't be. So many cuts, it made no sense. How did Todd drown? Why would he swim way out here, so far from everyone? Did he drown farther up the beach where everyone hangs out? Was his body carried here by the current? His body? How could Todd be just a body now? How could he no longer be Todd? Matt sank to his knees, his mind swirling faster than the ocean waters. He closed his eyes, but the vision of his drowned friend, his skin so white except for the cuts, stayed with him. Todd wasn't a strong swimmer. Why would he brave the undertow at night? Todd knew how powerful the undertow was, how unpredictable, how deadly. So why did he go swimming? Why, Todd? Matt cried, opening his eyes, raising his face to the orange rising sun. Several minutes later, two fishermen, tackle boxes and fishing rods in hand, came upon Matt, still on his knees, still huddled over his friend's body, still asking the question, "Why, Todd? Why?" Chapter 16. Bats fluttered and swooped above the trees of the small island, darting shadows against the charcoal sky. Beneath the shelter of trees stood shingled beach houses, long deserted by their human inhabitants. Bats had claimed the island years before. Bats and the eternal ones, the ones who could transform themselves, become bats when the need arose. The island was reachable only by boat, and this discouraged most people from building on it. Those who had built summer houses were driven away by the bats, murdered by those masquerading as bats, or had given up their blood and had become eternals themselves. Now, Gabri waited in a darkened house. He had claimed part of the house as his own, having spread the ancient burial dirt on the floorboards and placed a carefully polished dark wood coffin against the eastern wall, the safe wall. Leaning heavily against the window frame, he stared out through the open window at the driving bats that the moonlight revealed. Gabri sighed, unable to keep a pleased smile from spreading across his face. The air was warm and heavy, the way he liked it. The flutter of bat wings provided a pleasant background for his thoughts. Pleasant thoughts. Thoughts of how he had ruined Jessica's chances to win the bet. Thoughts of April, the fresh blood. He had sampled the blood so gingerly, so carefully, his thirst was barely slaked. But the summer was young. He had reason to be patient. Poor impatient Jessica. He was thinking of her as the bat floated down to the window. He pulled his head back as the creature, screeching like a fire alarm, buzzed by his face. It landed lightly on the door and began to whir about, faster and faster, until it appeared as only a shadowy whirlwind. A few seconds later, Jessica emerged from the whirlwind, ruby droplets of blood still clinging to her full lips. She angrily tossed back her mane of hair and advanced on Gabri. "Wipe that disgusting smile off your face." Gabri made no attempts to change his expression. "What's the matter, Jessica? A little too much to drink?" He snickered at perhaps the only joke he had ever made. Jessica raised her hands and lurched forward as if to attack him, groaning in anger. He stood his ground, his features narrowing. "Calm down. What's the big deal? You're a loser, that's all." She glared at him, balling her hands into fists, too overcome by anger to speak. "At least you're not thirsty," he said. "Shut up, Gabri," she snarled. "Just shut up." She crossed her arms tightly in front of her chest, shuddering with anger, her teeth clenched, her face suddenly old, as if her anger were revealing her years. He stood calmly at the window as she paced, enjoying her anger, enjoying her defeat, his victory. "Don't be a poor loser," he said softly, as bats fluttered and screeched outside the window. "I'm not a loser," Jessica declared, stopping inches in front of him. "You're a cheater, Gabri. You play a dirty game." His dark eyes widened in mock innocence. "Me? What did I do?" "First, you bit the girl to distract Todd," she reminded him, her face nearly in his, neither of them willing to back up. "Then you interrupt us, you fly overhead, you get me nervous, and cause me to accidentally bite Todd too deeply." He laughed. "I made you nervous?" "Stop laughing," she screamed. "I killed that boy, for no reason, just because you were determined to win our bet." "At least you had your fill of the blood," Gabri replied with a sneer. "What are you complaining about, Jessica?" "It wasn't part of the bet, Gabri." "Stop being a sore loser," he snapped, suddenly impatient, pushing himself away from the window. "All's fair in love and war, you know." "I'm not a loser. You're going to be the loser," she insisted vehemently, following him, her coppery hair flowing behind her as she moved. He laughed scornfully. "How can I lose? I have only 2 more encounters with April to go, 2 more tastes, and I will win." He walked to the coffin against the wall, and, seeing the sky begin to brighten as dawn approached, pulled the lid open. "But my victim," she started. "Your unfortunate victim is dead," Gabri said with a sneer. "Your clumsiness killed him. You must concede defeat." "No way," Jessica insisted, following him to his coffin. "I am not defeated. I am still going to win. I will simply choose a new victim." Gabri began to lower himself into the coffin. "A new victim? Get serious." "I am serious," Jessica said, finally calm, finally rid of her anger. She had an idea that was restoring her hope as it vanquished her fury. "I am very serious, Gabri," she told him as she slowly lowered the coffin lid over his reclining figure. "Todd's friend Matt will be my victim. He will do nicely. In fact," she smiled for the first time that night, letting him see her smile before she let the lid fall. "In fact, Matt will be easy prey." Part 2. Chapter 17. 4 nights later, tossing in bed, his sheets tangled, his blanket in a heap on the floor, Matt dreamed about Todd. He saw a broad, sandy stretch of beach, golden under a bright sun. High waves rose majestically at the shore, capped with white froth, rose and then fell onto the gleaming sand. Todd appeared, running barefoot at full speed. He was wearing baggy black swim trunks. His footsteps made no sound as he moved across the beach. Matt struggled to see Todd's face as Todd, running faster and faster, came toward him. But, although the beach shimmered in sunshine, Todd's face was blanketed in shadow. "Please," Matt thought, watching his friend lean forward as he ran, the tall waves thundering behind him. "Please let me see your face, Todd." And then Todd came into clear view. and his face was twisted in horror, his eyes bulging, his mouth locked open in a relentless silent scream. The sky darkened, grew black. The darkness followed Todd, moving toward him, moving faster than Todd could run. At first, the blackness seemed like a funnel-shaped cloud blocking the sun. Todd was still in the sunlight, but the black cloud was gaining, about to swallow him up. And then Matt saw that the darkness wasn't a cloud at all. It was made up of thousands of moving creatures. His vision cleared and he saw the black and purple wings, heard the shrill chittering, saw the dark heads bowed low in flight. The black shadow chasing Todd was a cloud of bats. Thousands and thousands of bats, fluttering, flapping, swooping together, blocking the sunlight as they moved, shadowing the beach, chattering and shrieking until the ocean's thunder faded. Running harder, sweat pouring down his forehead, Todd closed his eyes, but his mouth remained open. "Run, Todd, run," Matt urged. But the cloud of bats swooped over Todd. He toppled to the sand, first on his knees, then face down, and the bats descended over him like nightfall, and everything went black. Matt sat straight up in bed, relieved to see his room, relieved to see the gray morning light through the bedroom window. He stood up, half awake, half in his dreamlike state. The shrill cries of the bats stayed with him as he made his way uncertainly across the floor to the window. The cloud of bats, the blackness descending over the beach, over Todd. Leaning heavily on the windowsill, wanting to step out of the dream, wanting to escape from its frightening hold, but not wanting to forget it, Matt shook his head hard. He realized he had awakened from the dream with a word on his lips. Say it. Say the word, he urged himself. And so he said it. Vampires. The dream was trying to tell him, trying to show him. Matt knew it. Matt knew how Todd had died. The bats on the beach, the bats that lived on that small island off the shore, the bat that had attacked that girl. Vampires. The bats were vampires. The dream had revealed the truth to him. Wide awake now, he hurriedly pulled on a pair of wrinkled tennis shorts, picked up the t-shirt he had worn the day before, pulled it over his head, and headed for the back door without bothering to brush his teeth or hair. "Hey," his dad called to him from the breakfast table, as Matt rushed through the kitchen. But Matt was already out the screen door, the door slamming behind him. "Gotta go," he called back, and began jogging to April's house. The sky was gray, the air tinged with a wet chill. The sandy road was wet beneath his sneakers. He realized it must have rained the night before. He hadn't heard the rain. The dream had held him too tightly. First the thunder of the waves, then the frightening siren cries of the bats, the vampires. He had to tell April. He had to tell her that he had learned the truth. Despite the sunshine and blue skies, the 4 days since Todd's death had passed in a gray fog of gloom and shadows. The pictures all seemed to have faded in Matt's mind. Only the sounds remained, the anguished cries of Todd's parents, the murmurs of the police, the frightened hushed conversations of kids on the beach and in town. Matt had seen April only once in the 4 days. They tried to talk as if everything were normal, but neither of them could manage it. Then they tried to talk about Todd, but that was impossible too. Matt had left her to go wander alone on the beach, still wondering what had happened that night, why Todd had decided to go swimming, how Todd had died. The town coroner had called it an accidental drowning. But it didn't make sense to Matt, until the dream, until he woke up with the answer on his lips. And now he had to tell April. Approaching the back of her summer house, a small white clapboard cottage with a wide sun deck that was cluttered with outdoor chairs and an umbrella table, he could see April through the kitchen window. He leapt onto the deck and hurried to the back door, calling inside. April looked up, startled, from the table. Her mother was just clearing the breakfast dishes. The twins came racing to open the screen door, each calling, "I'll get it! I'll get it!" Matt greeted everyone, still trying to catch his breath from the long jog from his house. "Have you had breakfast?" Mrs. Blair asked, pushing up the sleeves of the man's shirt she wore over her bathing suit. "There's still some pancake batter left." "No thanks," Matt said, his eyes on April. She looked so pale and frail in the gray light filtering in through the glass windows. I wanted to talk to April." "Play with me instead," Courtney demanded. "No, me," Whitney cried. April stood up and gently brushed both girls aside. "Matt and I are going out on the deck," she said, giving Matt a faint smile as she led the way outside. Matt followed her onto the deck, eager to tell her what he had found out. The ocean air still carried a chill. The overcast sky was low and gray. April leaned against the deck railing and stared out at the trees. Matt sat beside her, wiping cold perspiration from his forehead with the hem of his t-shirt. The t-shirt smelled, he discovered, and he suddenly remembered that he was in such a hurry to talk to April he hadn't even brushed his hair. "I must look pretty gross," he thought. but he shoved these thoughts away, determined to share his new knowledge with her. "How you doing?" she asked somewhat shyly, staring out at the trees, dark under the low, hazy sky. "Okay. Not great, but okay." "Me too," she said softly. "I have to tell you something," he said impatiently, wishing she'd turn around and face him. "Something important. Should he just blurt it out?" She turned curious. "I'm so sleepy," she said. "Guess it's all this fresh air." "Listen, April, I want to tell you this. I know how Todd died." Her eyes narrowed. Her pale face seemed to lose even more color. "We know how he died, Matt," she said, her voice a whisper. "He drowned?" "Listen to me, April, please," Matt pleaded, putting an arm on the shoulder of the oversized blue t-shirt that stretched nearly down to her knees. "Please?" She didn't reply, just stared into his eyes. "The idea came to me in a dream," he said, speaking rapidly, his hand still on her slender shoulder. "But I know it's real." There was no way to say it slowly, to introduce the idea gently, he decided. He had to get it out, say what was on his mind. Todd was killed by a vampire. "Huh?" She pulled away from him, raised her hands as if shielding herself from this idea. "Vampires," he repeated. "You know all the bats that fly over the beach? They must be vampires. A girl was attacked by a bat a few nights before Todd died. The bat bit her throat, and Todd—" "Matt, this is a very dumb joke," April said heatedly, crossing her arms. "I don't get it at all." Matt started to reply, but the tiny red marks on April's throat caught his eye. He gasped, staring hard at them. Wild thoughts careened through his mind, crazy thoughts. Am I seeing things? Is it just a mosquito bite? Gabby's face floated through his thoughts. April and Gabby. April and Gabby. He pictured the two of them together. Is it possible? Is it possible that Gabby is a vampire? Or am I cracking up? "I had this dream, see?" he continued, his eyes locked on April's throat, his mind whirring excitedly. "Todd was running and—" "Stop, Matt!" April exploded. "Just stop it!" "I know I'm right," he insisted, ignoring her angry plea. "It makes sense, April. All the bats. And Todd, he had a cut on his neck, I remember." "Matt, I mean it," April said, her features tight with anger. "Shut up. Just shut up." "But, April, what had he done wrong? What had he said wrong? Why wouldn't she listen to him, at least give him a chance to explain?" "Grow up, Matt," she said, her green eyes flashing angrily. "Grow up? Your best friend is dead, and all you can think about is some horror movie?" "No!" he cried, but she wouldn't let him continue. "I've got news for you," she cried heatedly. "Life is real." "I know, but—" "Life is real, Matt. It isn't a dumb horror movie." There were tears in the corners of her eyes now. "Oh no," he thought, feeling his heart sink. "I didn't want to make her cry. Haven't we all cried enough this week?" "Todd is dead and is impossible to explain, impossible to accept," April said, forcing back the tears, trying to keep from losing control. "But blaming it on vampires like a child isn't going to help anyone." "But April—" He didn't know what he was going to say. He couldn't take his eyes off the small bruise on her throat. "Gabby is a vampire," he muttered. He didn't even realize he was talking, didn't hear the words as they came out, didn't mean for April to hear. Wiping away the teardrops that stained her pale cheeks, she glared at him furiously. "Are you totally losing it, Matt?" she screamed. "Go away! Just go away from me!" She spun angrily and moved toward the house. He started to follow, but she pushed him back, pressing her fist against his broad shoulders. "I mean it. Go away. I don't want to see you again. Don't call me, and don't come over." "What's going on out there?" one of the twins called, poking her golden head out the door. "Are they fighting?" the other one asked from inside. "Let me see." They both clambered noisily out the door as April pushed past them into the house, sobbing loudly. Matt sighed miserably and, without looking back, stepped off the deck and headed back to the road. 2 rabbits hopped excitedly across his path, but Matt didn't notice. It started to rain, a few large drops, a sprinkle at first, and then after a few seconds, a hard, steady downpour. Trudging slowly, his head down, Matt didn't react to the rain. His thoughts weighed heavier on him than any downpour. Of course April is right, he told himself, kicking out clumps of mud with his sneakers. His hair fell down over his forehead. His wet, fragrant t-shirt clung to his back. Of course she's right. How could I run over there talking about vampires? I really must have been totally off my nut. Vampires. Of course she thought I was a jerk. And she's right. Gabby isn't a vampire. I'm just jealous, and upset, and feeling sorry for myself. Vampires. I laugh myself, if I didn't feel so much like crying. How did I ever get such a dumb thing in my head, and how could I be so crazed that I took it seriously? He sighed loudly, shaking his fist at the trees as they bent under the weight of the falling rain. He wished he could sink into the mud, sink down over his head, and never return. I've made a total fool of myself, he thought, shaking his head miserably, shivering as a hard gust of wind swept cold rain down the back of his shirt. I've made a total fool of myself, and I've lost April for good. So what did you do in the rain all day? Ben asked, leading the way through the high grass over the dune. The grass, still wet from the day's rain, tickled Matt's ankles as he walked, and he wished he'd worn jeans instead of shorts. Not much, he muttered to his friend. Actually, he had spent most of the day staring out of the living room window at the rain, pacing back and forth, rolling Todd's plastic butane lighter around in his hand, and thinking about his dream, and how stupid he'd been to run right over to April's without stopping to think. He fingered the lighter now as he made his way over the dunes with Ben. The lighter was somehow comforting, his only memento of Todd. The sand is dry already, Ben said, kicking at it with the toe of his sandal. Isn't that amazing? It rained all day, and the sand completely soaked up the water. Matt looked toward the ocean. The clouds had finally parted as evening arrived. The night sky was nearly clear, the moon a pale circle over the ocean horizon. I did a really stupid thing this morning, he blurted out. So what else is new? Ben joked, bending to pull a long piece of dune grass up and stick it in his mouth. No, this was really stupid, Matt insisted. In a few sentences, keeping his eyes on the sand, he told Ben about his dream and his conversation with April. It was a dumb move, he concluded sadly. Ben chewed thoughtfully on a long piece of grass. Dumb is a good word for it, he agreed, shaking his head. Stupid is even better. I might even be tempted to use idiotic. You know, I didn't tell you about it so you could make jokes, Matt snapped angrily. Why did I tell Ben? He wondered. Did I expect him to jump up, slap me on the back, and say, You're right, Matt, those bats are vampires? I guess I just needed to confide in someone. Sorry, Ben said quickly. Really, you must feel like a jerk already, right? Some apology, Matt muttered. A bat swooped down low just ahead of them, a dark, fleeting shadow across the beach. Matt looked up again and saw two bats hovering over the next dune. In science class last year, we learned that bats are good, Ben said, slurring his words because of the long stem of grass he was chewing. They're really needed for ecological balance, you know. They eat insects, and bat guano is a really important fertilizer. Bat guano to you too, Matt muttered bitterly. Thanks for the science lesson. I don't blame you for being in a bad mood, Ben said sympathetically. I still feel creeped out about Todd too. And then having that guy move in on your girl. I don't want to talk about it anymore, Matt snapped, surprising himself with his own vehemence. Really? Hey, I'm heading to Swanee's, Ben said, obviously eager to end the conversation. You coming? Matt shook his head. Think I'll keep walking, he replied glumly. Maybe I'll catch you later. Ben gave him a little wave as he headed off. Cheer up, he called back. It'll only get worse. He didn't even bother to laugh at his own dumb joke, just hurried toward town. What a goof, Matt thought. With his science facts and ancient dumb jokes, Ben usually cheered Matt up, but not tonight. He made his way over the dune. Then, seeing a group of kids he knew on the beach, he turned, eager not to be seen, and began to walk quickly in the opposite direction, his eyes on the stone cliff, a black silhouette against the clear night sky. He found himself thinking of ways to apologize to April, but none of them seemed right. He couldn't imagine himself saying them. As he walked over the sand, he tried to think of how he could ask her to go out with him again, how he could ask her to stop seeing Gabri, but that seemed impossible too. Shaking his head, he tried to push all of those thoughts from his mind, tried to let the steady rush of the waves drown out all of his thinking. He stopped short as something caught his eye up ahead. Something huddled low and dark on a high dune, low and dark and still. Oh no, he muttered aloud, staring hard at it. What is that? Another body?